I'm your host, Peter Bojaranov. You can find me on Twitter at Russian98. You can also find the full show at Jablam Sports on Twitter. If you have any questions or comments on the show or any episode, please tweet us. Also, subscribe to us if you haven't done so yet, and click on the 3 dots in your podcasting app, and please share our show with 3 hockey fans you know. Thank you, everyone. Remember, check out our website. Go to jablamsports.com, Jablam sports.com, to see all our podcasts and even game notes for every episode. You'll get little tidbits or links to things we mentioned in each episode. For our podcasts, click on podcasts on our website, then hockey, and you'll get this show specifically. So, we're still doing a series of isolated friends episode for this season. It's where we're talking about to great friends, catching up, showcasing how hard they've been working in their lives, talking some hockey, maybe their favorite teams or classic hockey stories as well, and how they've been spending their time during this isolation period with the virus pandemic going on. What do we have this episode? Well, Tom Fontana is an insurance broker, and he's held many titles in his career already, including chef, radio, and TV reporter. He's also a huge Buffalo sports fan, so we'll talk some Sabres. Also, he's dealt with the coronavirus and had it. So today's episode is going to be a real interesting one. We'll get to know him. And time now for some trending now. And time now for some trending now. That sounds like a lot of nows, eh, Logan?
Well, now that you say it.
Of course, joining me again for trending now is Logan. Logan, again, where can we find you on Twitter?
At Hoagie99.
Cool. So, before we get to the interviews, trending now. Well, what is trending now? First off, a new Latino president and CEO for the Coyotes, Xaveir Gutierrez, the first in NHL history as a Latino, and good for that. Again, more diversity. This is good news.
Absolutely is. You can't get especially nowadays, there's never enough diversity in the hockey world, especially.
Yeah. And, of course, the owner of the Coyotes is Alex Morello, who's, of course, also of Cuban-American background. And, of course, we do have a handful of NHL players. I know when I was reading up on this, and, of course, I'll tweet out a great article from Fear the Fin from a few years ago. Bill Guerin was of Nicaraguan descent, and I didn't know that Bill Guerin had that background. And, of course, we know Scott Gomez was a great playmaker in the NHL. And right now in the NHL, we have Al Montoya, Max Pacioretty, Alex Martinez, a player that I really liked watching, and some people probably didn't, because he played for a team that I liked, was the Battalion, and that's Raffi Torres. He used to go a little bit over the edge, and I felt that, again, that was a bit of the whole attitude thing, and everybody just thought, all right, let's suspend Torres, because he hits like a Max truck, eh? Do you remember, Logan? That guy just demolished players.
Raffi Torres, former Oiler great, he loved to catch people with his head down. Or with their heads down, and then he would just take their heads off. It was just he was kind of slapped on the wrist a few times for hitting too hard or hitting too late, and he just never changed his style. So, but he was fun to watch.
Yeah, Torres. I liked watching Torres, and of course I love watching my boy Austin Matthews. And I like doing this. I don't know, maybe something's weird about me. I don't know, but I like seeing people from different cultures and background, and I liked that when the NHL celebrated the Centennial Classic, I was like, I wonder if those old school hockey players, or the ones that have passed away, are rolling in their graves now and seeing the NHL celebrating 100 years, and the best player at the penultimate game is of Mexican descent. I was like, yes, this is great. I loved it.
I would hope they're not rolling in their graves, but you never know, I guess.
The EA Sports NHL tweeted out, and of course, this was a couple of days ago. The EA Sports sent out a tweet, and I know when I logged into the game, there was a Black Lives statement when I went into the game, and I've noticed that in other games too, and other people have been tweeting out. And good on the gaming community as well to do this. EA Sports, their message, as it says, Chell shouldn't be a place for any form of hatred, bigotry, or racism. We have manually actioned on thousands of accounts to date, but it hasn't been enough, and that's on us. We are taking immediate steps to address this problem. So they go further on in this image on their Twitter account of how they're going to do this, and it's been an issue too because, again, we're trying to get rid of this in our hockey community and within dressing rooms and management, but it's in the whole community as well as in gaming too. When you play games, and I've seen this, and it pisses me off to see players with racist names in the game. Like kids or whoever's playing the game would change their Chell name to an awful name. I've seen players, guys, and still doing it now with the name like George Floyd or the N-word or variations of that, or stupid stereotypes. It's disgusting.
It is. It's not, and it's not just EAs or not just NHLs. It is all over the place, and I don't quite understand. Like, it's something they say thousands of. They've actually done thousands of accounts of dates. It seems like there's a lot more than just thousands. So if you've only done thousands, you're missing, tens of thousands. Like, at least now they're cracking. That's probably something they should have been cracking down on years ago.
Yeah.
Now they're just kind of taking it as a PR campaign, but at the same time, like, as long as if you fix the problem, it's fine. Don't just talk about it. Actually fix it, right?
So hopefully we grow as a community and we clean up the disgusting part of it. All right. The NHL awards are going to be presented, and by the time we release this, maybe it's already been done. We'll see.
Yeah.
But that should be on Monday night, and I know all the PHWA members and, of course, GMs are voting for the Vezina, broadcasters are voting for the Jack Adams. They're all putting in their ballots now, and we were talking about this beforehand, but yeah, usually they do the vote like before the playoffs even start. And then, as the playoffs are starting, they say who the nominees are. And then we have the NHL awards, and we see who won out of the nominees. So I guess on Monday, we're just going to find out everything.
Yeah. It's what they have to do, I guess, right? I guess they could wait, but meh.
Yeah. It's going to be weird if we really wait for the nominees, and then we wait for the whole playoffs if it happens. After that, we have an award show. We'll have the award show in like December 30th, and then we'll start the next season January 1st. So yeah, I guess it's something to look forward to a little bit now with this. So we'll kind of go through a couple of the main awards. We won't do them all. So let's start off, Logan. Who are your three nominees for the Hart?
The Hart, I think I said McKinnon, Draisaitl, and Pasternak. All three great players. All three mean a lot to their teams. And
so you had McKinnon, Draisaitl, and Pasternak. Okay.
Pasternak.
Yeah, I have Panarin, McKinnon, and Draisaitl. I really think Panarin has the best shot of winning this, actually.
I think Taves was saying Panarin should get it too. Like, I remember reading that recently.
In games, when you watch him, he dominates just like McKinnon, or maybe even better. And, of course, on that Rangers team, Zibanejad is very good. And then there's a big drop off.
Yeah.
Panarin's been really leading the way, and yes, now that more teams are allowed to go in the playoffs, and we don't know if Rangers would have made the playoffs if there were only 8 teams. And I know that's a bit of the rule, and we can talk about this in terms of who deserves a Hart, who doesn't, and do they have to be a playoff team. But man, oh man, Panarin was fabulous in this game, and I do recommend if you can go back and watch some of the games, go watch some of those Ranger games this season. He was amazing. He was outstanding.
He was trying to literally lift the team. He literally put the team on his shoulders and was carrying them around. So he was hoping like Kakko and some of the rookies would kind of step up. They didn't quite have the season, but it's tough. I mean, the rookies. What do you really expect, honestly? But,
yeah, there's a lot of young guys on that team, and hey, if they have a good core with Zibanejad and Panarin, and then some of those younger guys really step up, they've got some good prospects there, and Shesterkin in between the pipes. So hey, the Rangers could really turn it around, and hey, you never know. Maybe this playoffs they can keep it going, because they were really playing really well before the stoppage. The last month and a half, the Rangers really stepped it another gear. So we'll see what happens. I think McKinnon, he's been, taking over games.
I was going to say that he doesn't necessarily have the whole team on his shoulders, but in certain games, he just goes out there and is the difference maker, right?
Yeah.
If this is a game they need to win, okay, McKinnon will just score. Slap shot from center ice, or deke through 5 people, or pass it off to whoever's on his right. It's just he does everything, and he hits and he fights. It's like
so we both picked Draisaitl as well. I know you were thinking McDavid and Draisaitl.
Yeah.
How would you say that? How do you feel? Like 2 players that are maybe capable of getting the Hart. Is that possible? Is that I know some people on Twitter are talking about how can you nominate Draisaitl for the Hart when he's not even the best player on his team?
He was the best player on his team this year. Is the other part of that? He had the most points. Like, I guess I haven't really. I should check out the time on ice versus McDavid there, but Draisaitl kicked it up even another gear than last year. Like he had a 50-goal performance last year, and now he has a 100-point performance this year. It's just something. I think there was the one good thing Tippett. I think was it Tippett? No, McClellan. That's what I was taught.
Yeah,
had told him was like, you can be better than McDavid. He actually believed that, put the belief in Draisaitl that he could be a better player than McDavid. That's one of the things Draisaitl had said drove him in the past. So he's kind of showing that he can be better, or if just as good, if not better, type of.
Yeah, I don't know if Draisaitl wins this award, but in my opinion, he should be that third nominee, and I think Panarin is number 1. Then who also is probably number 1 for the Norris is John Carlson. Go ahead.
There's no one. There's a couple people close, but really. Not really. It's Carlson's to win.
Yeah, he was fabulous. Straight right out of the blocks this season. I think he was like number 1 among all players for a little bit of a while at the beginning of the season in terms of points, and he was flying. I remember Ovi was saying he should win MVP and everything like that. But no, that first half of the season, Carlson was outstanding.
Yeah, it's not just the points he's getting either. He's out there in key situations. He's out there in the last 2 minutes. He's defensive. He hits. He blocks. His stick's in the right area. He's as soon as the puck goes the other way, he's jumping up next to Ovechkin for that one timer. Right? It's just or passing it to Ovechkin for the one timer. He must have. I should really look at some of the stuff, but he must have like must be one of the best passers in the league.
Yeah. I think this is one of those years where, if Yoshi was playing and Carlson wasn't there as an option, he probably would have won. Yoshi was really good this year, and of course, Victor Hedman was pretty great as well. Who are your other picks? This is the same as well, right?
Yeah, it was Hedman. He's always that solid piece back there. I don't notice him as much, but he's always there. Like he's always getting points. He's always tops in defensive defenseman points. And yeah, Yossi is leader, block shots, hits, does everything, brings up the entire Nashville, which they didn't have a great season, but he was always the bright star on that team. So,
yeah. All right, for the Calder, who are your 3 picks?
I said Makar, Hughes. I don't even know if I had a third one. I guess Carter Hart. I forgot about Carter Hart.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if I have a number 1. Go ahead. Yeah, I have Makar, Hughes, and I really liked him, and I think he should be up in terms of number 1 is Kubalik. He was outstanding. I remember in December he tore a new one. He ended up being number 1 in rookies for goals. In the end of the season for all NHL players, not including rookies, because he was beyond far better than any other rookie in terms of scoring. He's 8th in the whole NHL after December 1st in terms of goals. 8th, with guys like Draisaitl and Panarin and Matthews and Ovechkin and Pasternak. 8th. He was that good, and I don't think a lot of people are talking about him. He was amazing.
Yeah, I guess it was a slow start. Did he wasn't there the entire year, was he? He got probably brought up not halfway through, but around December, I would imagine. But.
Yeah, he didn't play as much at the beginning, and then, of course, when you're playing with Patty Kane a fair bit, too, that's going to bump up some stats.
Yeah, but you still have to. It doesn't matter who. It kind of matters who you're playing with, but you still have to put the puck in the net. And to do it 30 times is impressive for a lot of players.
Yeah, let alone a rookie.
Yeah.
And, of course, I don't know, a toss-up, but Cale Makar and Hughes as well, they were outstanding. I don't know when you can recall the last time we've seen 2, such offensive and confident young defensemen the way both Makar and Hughes have hit the ground running this season. Or the ice skating.
Yeah, like I like to point out some of their defensive, the lack in their defensive game because they're so offensive, but they don't really have much. Their skating is good. Their sticks are in the right position. Their angles seem to be excellent. And then they take the puck away, and again, one quick pass up, and away they go.
Yeah, Hughes is so underrated in terms of his overall game too. He's so good defensively, stealing the puck, reading the play. And of course Makar, it just seems like Makar is McKinnon on defense almost. Does it seem like that, or is it just me?
I wouldn't call him McKinnon on defense, but that might be just you.
Yeah.
But they're just, I don't know what to really say. I don't know how they can keep it up, essentially. You think they're going to fall off a little bit, but then they just kind of kept going and kept rising throughout the season. So,
yeah. All right, for the Lady Bing, I nominated Zibanejad, McKinnon, and Austin Matthews. I really think Austin Matthews should win this. He was 1 goal behind and could have won the damn, goal-scoring race. But Pasternak and Ovi won the Rocket there. 1 goal behind, but of course for the Lady Bing, I can't see anybody winning this over him. Again, second in goals, 1 goal behind the leaders, and penalty minutes, very few. And just the way he plays, especially for a guy with the bigger body that he has, and that he can still drive the net and get the puck on the boards and steal the puck so much that he doesn't get more penalties. And I even recall 2 of the 4 penalties he got this year. I remember one. It was a horrible call. I was just like, how does he get that interference penalty? And he got a hook once. And I couldn't believe it. And his reaction was he was just shocked. He didn't say anything to the ref. It was just really? That's a penalty?
Was it like one of those one-handed hooks? You're like, but I wasn't even...
Yeah, the one hook was just a barely one on the shins, like a light tap with one hand. And the interference one was a bump and that didn't break up a play that became a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-2 kind of thing. It's just a random bump of a player that released the puck and then went another direction, and in the neutral ice, So, oh man, but like, and now that I'm recalling it, it bothers me. The thinking Matthews could have finished the season with only like 4 penalty minutes.
Yeah.
So, and of course McKinnon and Zibanejad are pretty close up there. Very, offensive, great games, and with not making as many infractions.
Yeah, I think I had Matthews and McKinnon as well. I want to see McKinnon over Matthews, but just because McKinnon plays a little bit more of a physical game and doesn't take that doesn't really cross that edge. Yeah. Whereas Austin Matthews, I think when you get him going, he pushes and shoves, but he doesn't tend to get physical. But that's not his game either. He's more the finesse guy. So
if you actually go back and watch the Leafs like last 15 games of the season, he actually started playing a lot more physical. And I don't know if it's the difference with Kyle Clifford being added to the team at the deadline or Kapanen being a little bit more, the fight that he had and a little bit more aggressiveness and being added to Matthews' line a little bit more. But I did feel a bit of a change in Matthews' game the last month or two in the season, and he started playing a little bit more physical and a little bit getting more into the dirty areas of his game in the last, third of the season.
Sheldon Keefe finally got to him and said, just use your big frame and knock people around a little bit.
Yeah. All right, and of course the GMs will be voting on the Vezina, so we decided to also, because we feel like we're GMs, right? We voted for them, put our noms in there, and I have Hellebuck, and I really think Hellebuck should probably win this. He was beyond, anyone in terms of ice time and quality and save percentage. Save percentage, yeah, maybe some of those guys like a Carter Hart and guys like that, had a little bit better save percentage, but he put in the ice time. He got the wins. He's up there with wins. He's up there with ice time. So I really think Hellebuck should win. I have Vasilevsky right there behind him. And then I wasn't sure who to put in that third spot, but I do have Binnington and Carter Hart tied pretty much for that third spot. What did you have?
I Hellebuck as well. He also has the most shutouts in the league. I had Rask because Rask's goals against the save percentage are like 1 and 2. I don't know who else I had. I think it was Vasilevsky, or Vasilevsky, just because he's always pretty solid in the regular season, not so much postseason, but that's not what the awards are about. But I still think Hellebuck is the better goaltender this season. I didn't realize that there was that much of a discrepancy before Tom and Ice or games played, but he seems he was the star of the Winnipeg Jets.
Oh yeah,
as well.
With
stealing games for them.
With the different changes on that back end, Byfuglien not being there this last year, and Tyler Myers being gone from the team, signing in Vancouver, and there's just a lot of rookies in that defensive back end, couple of injuries. Yep. He, on paper, just like, oh yeah, he had a very, very good year. But then when you delve into it even more, the quality of saves he made and the team that he had in front of him, he was outstanding, and he could have been even in that, Hart nomination as well. And I feel that a lot of people don't think about goalies when it comes to the Hart Trophy, but that's another story.
Like the Rask and Vasilevsky arguments, they had great seasons. They had better teams in front of them as well. Mm-hmm. Not that Winnipeg's terrible, but
yeah. I like that you mentioned Rask, and man, Rask is just so consistent. He's been one of the top, maybe I would say top 5 at least, goalies of every single season for over a decade now.
I don't know about a decade, but last
Yeah,
5 years for sure. Could be close to a decade. Yeah.
yeah. It's if you go back on Rask's stats and the way he's played and for the Bruins, he's been good for 10 years. He's been
Yeah.
amazing. Um, I'm glad that we got to mention like Bennington and Hart and those guys.
Yeah.
Hart, man, if he had played more games, he would totally be right up there with maybe Vasilevsky and Hellebuck. But I think being a rookie, I'm glad you mentioned him for the rookie award.
Yeah.
Just not enough games for me to put him in that one number 1, 2 for the Vezina. But I think he should get a lot of nominations.
I hope so. Yeah. Talked about in a lot of these categories.
Thanks, Logan, for helping with our trending now this week. Next up is Tom Fontana's interview. Listen in, folks. Now on the podcast is my good pal, Thomas Fontana. He's an agency manager and insurance broker currently at the Keller Insurance Group. He's also been a restaurant owner and, of course, a news reporter. Tom, welcome to the show.
Peter, thank you for having me. You look good. I like the. I think you're trying to grow a little bit of a beard there, but not as good as mine right now.
Oh, I know. Yours is fantastic. I've never seen you have a beard before, and I know
Yep.
what we're going through and all this, and we will get to that, and we'll talk a little bit about that, and of course, we'll talk a little bit about Sabres near the end. But your beard
Oh yeah.
looks fantastic.
It's the only good thing to come out of this COVID-19. I can tell you now. But it does. I was actually planning on just shaving it after because I came down with the COVID-19 virus, which was awful. So I started growing it right then, and I figured I'll shave it. But I like it. People like it, so I'm going to go with it until my wife says, Anna says, get rid of it. Then I probably will get rid of it.
All
So we'll
right.
see.
Yeah. So you did have COVID-19 in your body. I know it might be a little bit difficult to talk about, and you don't have to go into too much detail. But like, how did it feel at first? What were like the symptoms?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And, I was one of the things I wanted to do is to get something out of this and help people because there's a lot of people that are concerned. You come home, you get a sore throat, you have a cough, because you kind of forget you have those things naturally in other years. But my symptoms were that dry cough that wasn't, as they say, producing anything. It was just sort of a nagging cough. So I had that maybe 4 or 5 days prior. But the day before, I really had I guess the storm was coming, was just sort of a loss of energy. But again, that could be any day, right? But the day I knew I was something happened, I got home from work and I just it was around 9 o'clock at night, and I just started to feel like this weird electricity in me, and you kind of knew like something was wrong. Like your body was, it's kind of like getting, if you're ever frightened and you're scared, it's kind of like that, but it was all internal. And I knew something was wrong because I've never felt like that before. Just like major chills. So, and I had those the whole night, and then I woke up the next day and I was just shot, and I'm like, oh, something's wrong. So it's just, and for me, it was about 2 weeks just in my bedroom. The most I could do is just walk to the kitchen just to kind of, try to get some bearings on what was going on in the world, other than, what I was experiencing and feeling. But thank God for my wife. She was there, um, cooking for me, taking care of me, and it was scary though because now I look back and I read some of the stories of some of the people that had this that didn't make it, and those numbers are really really high, which is very sad. Same situation as me, just I didn't want to go to the hospital. I was having trouble breathing. I wanted to just gut it out at home, so that's what I did. But and luckily for me, I survived, and I think in the months and years to come, we'll find out just what this virus does to certain people, because we probably both know people that had it and really were symptom free or minor symptoms. But for some reason, I just experienced a great deal of discomfort, like the flu, those type of symptoms, very bad stomach pains, and indigestion, and then headaches. It was awful. Just curled up in bed. As a matter of fact, there's an imprint in my mattress of where I laid for like 10 days. So we're gonna have to get a new mattress, but that's happened, and a fever too. I had a bad fever, so you're popping. Uh, I'll say Tylenol because that's what I was taking. But that was kind of like, how much do you take? So, but I was doing that for probably 7 or 8 days, and then all of a sudden my fever broke, and I just had some hope. So, but it was, yeah, a very serious virus, and I know we're starting to open up here in the States. I'm in Lewiston, New York, which is not very far from you, in Brampton. So, things are starting to open up now, but we still have a long road ahead of us. But I think for the most part, I'm just praying that we don't have another the second wave, if you will. So
yeah. You did speak about your beautiful, intelligent wife.
yes,
I love her. She is my sister, just so everybody knows. I'm just not randomly loving
that
Tom's
got
wife.
Weird. That didn't get weird for
Yes.
me,
But she helped take care of you and cook for you and everything. But and she, from what we can tell from the tests and everything, she did not get COVID-19. How close was she in terms of interacting with you, and like what was she using to cover herself up when she kind of was?
Yeah, no, great questions. So we were fortunate enough to have the I think it's the N19 or the 3M masks, the respirator masks. So we had those, and she was wearing one of those. Those types of masks, you can tell by looking at them, and they're more serious than the average mask that most people are wearing, whether it's fabric or just those the light blue material. Will protect not only you, but it'll protect other people. So that's kind of what she used. But I tell you, I was really surprised that she did not get, catch the COVID. And I thought she did because she was showing some minor symptoms. She had a cough, she had upset stomach, and I'm like, oh, I gave it to my wife, and I felt terrible about it. But it was, and this was 2.5 months. That not that she was had the symptoms for that long, but I'm like, man, I feel bad. And she was kind of saying, you gave this to me, and and I did feel bad. But so back to the first point you made, though, I got tested and she got tested at a clinic here in Niagara Falls. Now I knew I had it, so I just got the antibody tests. But Anna got antibody and the COVID, and it came back on, like you said, the COVID negative. And the antibody tests, there's two different types of tests that we did. I'm not a doctor, so I can't speak with the different terms. But the first antibody test basically will show you if you still have it. And then the second test is the one that everyone wants to know is did you have it? Well, to give you an example, my score of the second test was like a 19. And again, forgive me, I can't make sense of that, but it's a high number, where Anna's was like a 0.2. So that basically says anything under a 1 is negative. And the first scale test for Anna was like a 0.7. So she's negative on everything. But it's weird that she had some, I guess, remnants, or if you will, in her body, because I think she was around me. And I think if you check your blood for, what's in your blood, I think other things would come up that people were surprised for, because we don't live in a perfectly clean environment. But yeah, so she was able not, thank goodness she wasn't, she didn't get it, because you don't know. I mean, my worry was if I'm sitting there, I can't do much. And what happens if she came down with it? Then what? So very very limited on what to do. So we were just lucky, and like I said, prayed a lot, and I did everything my doctor told me to. I was just drinking all sorts of warm liquids, and the honey and lemon and tea, or not the tea, but the honey lemon with water rather, was what they prescribed, and I was able to get. A Z pack, they call it, and it's just an antibiotic. But that, other than Tylenol and that was it. But it was draining. And I mean, like I said, here we are about 2.5 months later. I feel maybe about this week I'm actually had my full strength back. But even like 2 weeks ago, I was just trying to help my brother move a couple of boats, and I just didn't have the wind. I literally moved one, and I was just like, had to stop. So it was, you don't like that, but I guess there's scarring that goes on in the lung cavities because of what this is. It's scary though, it really is. So hopefully, like I said, there's no second wave. I mean, we've had a lot of stuff going on in both our countries, mainly in the U.S. with the protests. A lot of people out there. I just hope and pray, as they were out there for good reasons, but I hope and pray that there isn't a second wave because of all these people gathering. This could be even worse. So,
All right. Well, thank goodness, Tom, that you are getting back to normal. Can you please, going back to your career and everything, you are...
Yes, let's talk fun, good stuff, exciting stuff.
Yeah. So you are an insurance broker. In terms of this a little bit, though, has there been any procedural changes at work or in your office or in the company? Have they sent any kind of emails? Like, how's that going on?
Right. Well, in the insurance business, we are essential, so we were open really from day one. Of course, I was sick, so I wasn't there for a little bit. But my office did shut down for a couple of weeks because I was sick, and as it turns out, there was another office worker that was sick in the office too. So they shut us down. But my company, the Keller Group, we're part of a larger network of agencies too. You're open. People need insurance. They need your help. But even today, as the doors are opening, they've installed plexiglass. So when someone comes in, there's some glass in front of people in case someone coughs, even though they have the masks. So they purchased a bunch of masks for the staff, and then customers that come in that don't have a mask. So that way everyone feels comfortable, just doing everything you possibly can. No shaking of hands, a lot of elbow rubbing, serious elbow rubbing, but seriously, that's what people are doing. Just kind of, hey, call it the chicken wing. We should actually, we should do something on that.
Yeah, I think Victor Hedman of the Tampa Bay Lightning kind of started it, and like even with like media members and teammates and stuff. So it's kind of like become a thing. But yeah.
Yeah, it works. I mean, it's kind of funny when you meet with people, and like it's just weird not shaking their hand. I mean, obviously family, you give family a hug and kiss or what have you, but just in the professional setting, it's like you're just so used to reaching your hand out as an intro. And in my line of work, I mean, everything is relationship. Insurance is all relationship, and in so many cases, because I want to get to know my customers and the business owners as much as I can, so I know what they're doing, what makes them tick, what's important to them, and vice versa, them as well. They want to get to know me. So that's kind of why I got into insurance. I knew I was actually in running my restaurant, and I just thought to myself, man, I don't know how many years I can last at this, because it's a tough go. My family had restaurants growing up, so it was in my heart and my soul, and my love for food was something that really drove me to open up a restaurant in my late 30s, which I'm glad I did. We had a great following rather, and but I just said, I better start thinking about the future just in case I want to make a move, and that's kind of what happened. I was able to find the Keller Group, and they're obviously here locally, and they were a very amazing company to work for. We're part of, like I said, a national, I guess, series or different companies, but it's still a real local feel. So I like that. But the insurance business is good because you get to help people, and I do a lot of different things as well. As far as it's not the same thing every day.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
So
But
yeah, go ahead.
with the restaurant, I mean that was exciting. I think like I said, I was born and raised in the restaurant business, and I think I was making pizzas when I was like 6, 7, 8. So and it's a lot of people, and there's a lot of restaurants out there. I mean, you're in the Toronto area. I'm in Buffalo. Even in Buffalo, there's a ton of restaurants, even in Lewiston here. So not everyone, but it seems like that's kind of like on a lot of people's bucket list is I want to run a restaurant, and it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of money that's always going out. You don't always make money every week. In some cases, the servers sometimes make more money than the owners, and it's just like anything else where you got to say, well, how big do you want to get? And you got to get to a certain point where you're making enough income where you can hire the people that do the things like like I made all the meals, and they call it the chef owner. That's what I was. And you can last like that, but it's just, you got to be even busier and stuff. So I just couldn't get as busy as I wanted it to be, because there's so many different restaurants out there. So that's why at the end of the day, I just decided to make a move and go full time into the insurance business. So, but yeah, it was Italian food, and it was awesome. I used to all my friends and family, and the restaurant that the location that we bought was a famous location too. It was around for probably about almost 100 years. Most recently, before us, it was a restaurant called Billy Ogden's, and that was the place. That's where all sorts. You talk about Sabres and Buffalo Bills during the glory years; they would all be in there. You'd have Ralph Wilson, having lunch, with many different players. But I used to know the owner of that before he passed away, and there was just so many different people that would come in. And Rob Ray come in. He had like like his posse back in the day, so it was a really cool place. Obviously, my place wasn't like that. It was just good food and good people. So,
Yeah,
but good times, man.
Yeah, and I have tasted your food. It is excellent. What is like your still go-to dish that you like to make?
Well, I haven't made it for Anna yet, and she'll probably, I'm sure she'll definitely listen to this.
Yeah.
And it's called a pistachio pork chop. And the only reason why I haven't made it is because it's a pain in the butt. If you're in a restaurant, a commercial kitchen, you've got everything in front of you, but but essentially you take a pork loin and you slice it maybe like a 2 to 3 inch slice. So it's nice and thick. And then you pound it out. Well, when you're pounding that sucker out, man, there's pork going everywhere. Just something you don't want to do in the kitchen. But it was amazing. It's breaded with pistachios and pork chops, and you also have sliced apples that are cooked in ice wine and maple syrup. So that's going. So it's real good. But one of these days, I'm going to make it for Anna. We also had the stuffed banana peppers that were fantastic. Those are the Hungarian, the yellow peppers, and they were stuffed with a traditional 5 cheese blend, which just dynamite. We cook them up in a frying pan, olive oil, and then put a little garlic in at the end, fresh parsley. All the Italian favorites. Your standards, your spaghetti parm, ravioli, lasagna, chicken parm. And a lot of other stuff that I'd come up with every night. We had a big chalkboard in the back of the restaurant that had maybe like 20 different specials that were going on. If it was Friday, we'd have some more seafood, or if it was a Saturday, we'd have, some different things, steaks and, lobsters and stuff. So it was a lot, but I did it. Sometimes I surprised myself. I never had any training. I didn't go to like a chef school, but just like I said, living in it, watching my dad, my grandmas, all cook. I think that's how I picked up on it. So, but I really love cooking here, at home. I'm always whipping up stuff. So, yeah, it's funny. The other day, I made Anna my. I call them. They call them smashed red potatoes or garlic smashed potatoes. I mean, that's not it's a common name, but I've got my own little recipe. I've never made them for her, and she loves potatoes. And she looked at me one bite. She goes. She kind of like swore at me. I'm like, wow, you don't like them? She goes, why haven't you ever made these for me? I'm like, oh. And then she was like, I'm like, oh, okay. So then a couple of days later, I made them again for her. But it was kind of funny, her reaction. But and that's good. Yeah, I think I've always been whether you're in the restaurant business or you're in insurance or I've always been one to like working with people and helping people. So I don't know in a way I like to make people happy with my food. And I think that's the truth. Where we've all gone to restaurants where you've walked into a restaurant and you've seen the owner come out after, during the meal. It just makes you feel good. It's like, man, whether it happens in today's world, I don't know, but it's just, even if the chef comes out, hey, how was everything? And, and that's kind of what I used to like to do. And then they would be eating and they would look at you and, they weren't lying. They liked the food. That's something that gave me a lot of satisfaction. Being in the restaurant business. It's just kind of weird, right? But it did. And I just think that's just from my heritage, Italian. And I think that's, part of the lure, I guess, to running the restaurant. So I didn't get rich, that's for sure. But there are restaurants that locally that do very well. And I hope that and even obviously the restaurants in the Toronto area, you just hope that they're able to come out of this being, shut down, only having takeout, curbside only, up until actually in New York this week. Now they're actually able to serve on an outdoor patio from what I've been seeing. So, but yeah, I just hope a lot of these restaurants are able to stay in business, because it's definitely tough. So,
oh man, I know my mom likes to cook once in a while, and we're like a Serbian heritage here at home, and she likes to cook those stuffed peppers with beef and ground pork and stuff like that. And Tom, you're killing me here. I'm actually fasting today. This is kind of like been a diet thing that I've been working on, like every 3 or 4 days that I'm fasting. And now you're making my my mouth drool. I'm like, I have to wipe my mouth. Oh my goodness, you're killing me here.
Going. This is all for just think ahead. Plot out your meals for Monday and Tuesday, and you'll be good. But I think everyone knows the relation. You're my brother-in-law. It's okay to say that, because you're the man. But yeah, your mom, Mama Mira, is one heck of a cook. Really introduced me to all sorts of good foods, and Serbian foods. I call it burek. I can never quite say it right. Burek. Burek.
Yeah.
And then the yogurt, like your dad, he makes that yogurt. Now I make it here, but it's not even close to what he makes. But it's amazing when you pick something up like that and you're like, oh, I love that. And when I would have yogurt, it would be like, in a cup with some fruit, whatever that is, mix it up and you think that's good. But yeah, it's amazing. So, your dad makes Vasa. Yeah, and I'm sure he can cook too. He's done a good job on the grill, but his yogurt's awesome.
Sure. So we will get to Sabres talk in just mere moments, but one last, career professional question I want to talk to you, Tom, about is you were a reporter at WBEN AM radio and TV on WB49, and you were telling me before that you were working like some pretty interesting stories. But one thing I wanted to ask you was, because your name, and I know you've told me many times, your name is Tom Fontana, and did you actually interview Tom Fontana?
Yeah, it was more than an interview. And I wish it's kind of one of my regrets from being in broadcasting is not staying in touch with him, because what a great guy. But if for those that are listening that don't know, we carry the same name. Tom Fontana was born and raised in Buffalo's West Side. That's where I come from. So we never really did find out if we're related. My family says no, and that's probably the case. But you don't know. I mean, we were so close. I think that our parents. I'm in my 40s. I know him, but I think our parents, like, the baby boomers, definitely know him, because he started out with, he's a writer, producer writer. St. Elsewhere was his first, I guess, big hit, if you will, from like 82 to 88. I think people remember that. Homicide, Life on the Streets. Those went sort of back and forth with the Law and Orders of the world. I mean, they sort of worked in the same building back then. And if you go into the IMDb, it's a long list. He did Oz, Copper, you name it, and he did all sorts of stuff. Very famous writer. But getting back to when I was at WB, which was owned by Sinclair. I'm not sure if Sinclair owns them, but it was sort of a national, local kind of news station It was a lot of fun. But I got the opportunity to do a story called Tom Fontana Meets Tom Fontana, and it was kind of, probably the coolest part of one of the coolest parts of being a reporter, which I really loved. And we met at Buffalo State College, Elmwood Avenue in Buffalo, and that's where we both went to college. So we went to the same college. Obviously I went a few years later, and there we were. We sort of just walked the campus as I interviewed him, and we talked about his life and all sorts of stuff, and I interjected some of my stuff, and it was just a great story that I was able to do. But the funny thing is how I first met him when I was on radio in Buffalo too at the WBEN. That's where I sort of I came into the news business, and I was really green, man. I had no idea. It takes a while to get your chops. I was a radio DJ before that on in college radio, and then a local radio station in Niagara Falls, and that's radio DJ. That was it. But then I realized, well, I want to do something else. But I was worked in radio and started to get pretty good, and then 9/11 happened, and I was probably a couple years into my career in the news business, and that was like, holy cow. And I remember that day, and it just teaches you what the facet of a reporter really is. You're sharing information as you're hearing it, and you're out there and you're reporting what you're seeing. Obviously, I was not in the locations of the crash, but I was handling anything that was going on locally. I was at Air Base, a refueling wing here in Niagara Falls. So you just saw all the activity that day, speed up 100%. So that was crazy. But that was one of my most memorable, because then after 9/11, it was the moments in the weeks and months, years, if you will, the coverage that went on. So getting back to my point, though, back to Tom Fontana, is a lot of my stuff, was on CBS radio in New York. I'd be doing special interest pieces or this or that, and some of the stuff wasn't 9/11. We had the Lackawanna 6. You remember that? A few years later, that was a huge story. That was a terror cell in a suburb of Buffalo, Lackawanna. And a few of those stories were broadcast on CBS radio. Well, one of those stories was on Tom Fontana was listening, and he said to his driver, "Hey, I wonder, who this Tom Fontana is in Buffalo." And so the driver actually called me up that very next day and said, "Hey, I work for Tom Fontana." I'm like, it was like the coolest thing, that he made the connection, and he says, "Here's his number. Give him a call sometime." So then I called him. And we didn't talk that much, but talked to him a couple of times, and it just helped the process. Then years later, when I was on TV, we were able to connect again to do that story. So not a huge history, but certainly pretty cool, for sure.
That's great. All right, so you did grow up in Buffalo.
The signature moment in Memorial Auditorium history was May 20th, 1975, the Fog Game. Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final. Jim Lorentz killed a bat with his stick that day, while Robert scored the winner.
Farrell coming to center, dumps it off the boards in the corner. Robert going after it, he scores!
So,
Awesome.
those are some memories, of course, from the Odd, and of course the Fog Game that I cannot remember, of course. And I don't know how
I can remember.
Yeah, but Tom, please tell us, growing up as a kid in Buffalo, what did you remember, maybe about the auditorium or just your own memories?
No, I love the Odd. I mean, as a kid going to that arena, that was before obviously years before the Renaissance of the city. But I remember going down there, and it was like this. I thought, a beautiful building, brick building. It was like so cool. And you go into the Odd, and it's just, I remember the first couple of games I went, we didn't have very good seats at the time. And those 300s, those were scary. I mean, you talk about steep, you talk about if you lose your footing, you're going to go stumbling. But the odd was crazy because literally you were right on top of the players. And I think that's why the Sabres were very successful in that arena for a lot of years, because that the home field advantage, home ice advantage was huge. But I do remember later on, my dad and my uncle were friends with Rick Martin back then, and he had some sweet seats. So I think we split the season with him. And after he was retired, obviously, but that's my first real memory of sitting there. I think we were like 3 rows up, and I was like, "This is awesome." And I've always been a huge sports fan. I mean, it's just sports and food have been my deal in music. But yeah, and like I said, I remember just sitting there. I'd go to maybe like 10 games a year, and on one occasion I was sitting there, and this was before any netting was there. I caught a puck. I flipped up and I grabbed it and I just said, "Oh my goodness!" And I still have that hockey puck today, and it has a chunk that it was just hit out of the old Buffalo Sabres emblem. Coolest thing ever as a kid to do that, So yeah, but the odd was great. It was a small ice surface, and many good games there. I think the May Day. You ask me, what's your greatest moment? It's got to be May Day. I mean, it's like we lost to the Boston Bruins in the playoffs. I think it was like 3 or 4 straight times or something. And then we came back and finally beat them, but not just to beat them. We swept them. I think it was 92, 93. I was, to be honest, some of this stuff escapes me, but it's really cool when you start going on the internet to look at it. But yeah, that was awesome. And it was a heck of a year for the Sabres. I'm surprised they didn't go a little bit, farther in the playoffs that year. But yeah, the Mayday goal when we beat Boston was Rick Jennerek's his most famous call, in my opinion. Mayday, Mayday! That was awesome. I mean, you hear that, it gives you chills. That was, in the old arena, and then the new arena opens up in '96. Do you have it? There we go. There it is. Listen. Oh, it's Mayday! He says it. Yep. I mean, one of the best calls of all time, in my opinion. It was sweet. Again, as Game 4, it wasn't like, you're on your seat kind of deal, but it was just so cool to finally get over the hump and get back in the playoffs. And that was the year that you remember LaFontaine, one of my favorite players, him and Alexander Mogilny exploded. I don't have a lot of stats, but I'll give you these stats since I'm looking at it. Mogilny, 76 goals that year, 92, 93. And then LaFontaine, Buffalo team record today, 148 points. I mean, that's huge. That was just crazy. So
yeah, I remember growing up with Jenneret. It was like la 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 Fontaine.
Yeah, right.
Oh man, that was classic. And of course, when I was growing up, I used to call Mogilny my God, because everything he would do was just so creative and very different from everybody else. I'm like, this guy creates stuff just like God. So and then of course he played for my Leafs. So yeah.
You know what? I just. How long do you know offhand how long he played for the Leafs?
Not too long.
Do a little research. Not too long?
Not too long, like 3 years, I think, roughly.
Yeah.
Because I remember I liked him before when he was on the Canucks. I didn't know him too much on the Sabres because I was a little bit younger then. Mm-hmm. But yeah, amazing. Yeah.
Big time. And that was the year of Pavel Bure, I think. Yeah. I think Bure won the goal title. I don't remember how many goals he had, but they were like neck and neck the whole year. That was exciting. I think I don't even know how many goals he had that year. It must have been more than 76. Mm-hmm. I think if I'm incorrect on that, I'll definitely correct myself. But mm-hmm. I don't think he won it. So that was awesome.
Right. And where were you when this happened?
Oh, I haven't heard that. So many years. That was the no goal.
Yeah.
In the crease, they said. In the crease. Yeah, it looked like a good goal. But yeah, that was that wacky year where, if your pinky was in the, the blue paint, they'd call it back. Technically, he was in the crease. But again, game 6, was a double overtime. I mean, it was a great series. The Sabres were a bit outmatched by the Dallas Stars, and star power. But we had Hasek, and he was just phenomenal goalie. We had a blue collar team. I think we always have a blue collar team, but they were still fantastic. Jason Woolley opening up that series and winning was just an OT winner, was just a great way to start it. But like I said, you went 6 games with a great team. But yeah, to lose like that, and then to lose on your home ice and see the cup, it's probably never a good thing. I don't know if it's ever happened to Toronto or the the Leafs, but it's just probably not a good thing. I didn't go to that game. I don't know where I was, to be honest. Just thinking about that, but I'm sure we were watching it with friends and family. But that moment reminds me of and not to get into the Bills, but those Super Bowl losses. It's like year after year after year. It's like, oh my goodness. It's so we've had a lot of heartache. And we're still looking to get over the hump. With other than the Bandits winning a national championship. In the modern era, really hasn't happened. So we're just trying to. That's why the Buffalo fans go crazy, whether it's the Sabres or the Bills, when they get close, and hopefully we'll be able to get over the hump. The Bills certainly look a lot better, and the Sabres had an okay year. Jack Eichel is obviously one of my favorites. He's looking really good, as well. A lot of good young talent on the team. So. Hopefully we'll be able to. Again, it's going to be weird with the playoff. Obviously the Sabres aren't in it. I think they were 7th ranked, the 7th lowest, or they were the last team out, if you will. But it'll be interesting to see what happens now in the fall. With such a late playoff. I'm sure that's going to be starting soon, right? I don't follow it as much.
It sounds like the playoffs might be coming back in as early as August, mid-August, I'm guessing. But that's even if. It's all still question marks. They want to make sure it's all possible. They want to make sure that, nothing can get worse. And, about maybe that second wave too. But you're mentioning how crazy the fans are and everything in Buffalo and yourself and everybody. And when I was asking Anna, your wife, and my sister, about what to talk to you about, and she said, yeah, he's crazy about his sports. He's always loud. He's just really loud. I said, yeah, I guess that's pretty much all sports fans, but because I can't take it sometimes. I try to watch games with him, but he's just loud.
Passionate.
Yeah.
Well, the first time she heard me scream, and I scared our cat, and I think she's still scared over it, was when remember a couple of years back when Tyrod Taylor was playing for the Bills, and we ended the season. We won, but we weren't in the playoffs until the Cincinnati Bengals. Andy Dalton throws a late fourth quarter pass right at the end of the game to win the game, sending the Buffalo Bills to the playoffs. I remember sitting here, and she was in the other room, and I screamed so loud that she was like, what happened? Like, she thought, and I'm like, the Bills made the playoffs. The Bills made the playoffs. And of course we lost the next week, but I was so excited. Yeah. It's just, when and over the years, I've kind of had to take a step back because you get so passionate, about the sports, and I was way worse when I was younger, because I was playing sports and blah, 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 blah. But I still get back at my A game as far as intensity when they get, and I'm always supporting the team. There's no doubt about it, but it's just something about getting to that level. You want them to see to get over that hump, and then this past season when they made the playoffs, it was, it was very exciting as well. But Sabres, we're just, like I said, we're hoping that they could come back and get in the playoffs and then see what happens. So I think they need some more. In my opinion, I think they need more size. the young players like the Eichels, Reinhardts, those guys are fantastic. They're getting stronger. But I think even on the defensive end, it seems like see, this is kind of a weird statement, but just seems like the days when Brian Campbell, and there's other days, but up until the Brian Campbell left, when he was here, man, the team was so strong defensively. They very seldom did they get locked down in their own end. But after that Brian Campbell trade, this is years ago, but this is how long I've been noticing. I don't know. It's just something. The team just hasn't seemed right. Whoever they put back there. I mean, this year was better than years past, but it all starts with the defense. You look at a lot of the good teams the Sabres had. The 06 team. There's a lot more, but their defense, man, under Ruff, they were monsters. They would just, boom, boom, in and out. Different game now, I know, than it was back then, a little bit. But I think that's getting to my point. Defensively, you got to be solid because it's those, it's those missed opportunities. It's the giveaways that where you have the puck in your own net, and that's the difference, between making the playoffs and not. And when you look at the team and the records, it could be 5, 6, 7 games. If you would have won those games, that's that extra. Those are those extra points, the 10 points, 11 points that you needed to make it. So that's where defensively, I think is something that we need to continue to work on. We have a lot of young talent, but it just seems I think that's what we need to do to get over the hump. We have plenty of offense. I think Toronto, you agree with me or not, Toronto got plenty of offense. I think, just like the Sabres, I mean, Toronto's really was able to pick up from their down year a lot faster than Buffalo. I mean, they're fantastic, Toronto. But I think the same, it's almost like, a little better defensively. And I think you guys are, go even farther in the playoffs and win it,
Well, we'll see about that. I'm hoping, knocking on wood, maybe they can do something this year.
That'd be interesting.
When you look at the Sabres defense, though, I kind of like them. They Ristolainen is pretty underrated, I think, as well as Colin Miller. Now that they've added him, and some of those younger guys could be pretty good. They have Jake McCabe's been there for a little while, and now they've added Yoki Harju from the Hawks, and I kind of like him. And how about Rasmus Dahlin? He's a stud, and he's only going to get even better. So I think they have something to build around with this defense, really, if you think about it.
They do. They do. I think Ristolainen, I mean, I really like watching him as a player. I just think, I've never been a professional athlete, but I just think sometimes when you're not getting to that next level, I think, maybe you lose a little or something. But I just think, he wanted out of Buffalo because he wants to go to that next level. But I think you got to say to yourself that what I would do if I was in that position. Everyone's just got to work harder. But yeah, he's a great player. But Dahlin, man, he's awesome now, and I think, like you said, he's going to be one of those great defensemen that you hear of from years to come. And Nicholas Lindstrom, they compared him to from Detroit. He was an amazing defenseman for years. If he can get anywhere near that would be awesome. But you're right. Yeah, these guys are all lifting. They're getting stronger. Dahlin's getting stronger. So I think we'll be in good shape.
Eichel was kind of recently reported as to saying something in the terms of he's kind of a little bit frustrated that the Sabres can't really compete or take to the next level, or he's not making the playoffs. How long do you think he has in maybe staying in Buffalo? And if they can't make the playoffs in another year, 2 years, or 3 years, do you think he might want out? Just like the rumors are, maybe Ristolainen wants as well.
Well, my point about Ristolainen, when you look at Eichel and the way he carries himself and what he talks about, and that's what I'm saying and again, I'm not in the locker room or anything like that, but just from what I see. But Jack Eichel carries himself like a true professional, and I don't really know a whole lot about Ristolainen. I'm sure he does, but if he could look at Eichel and say, well, let me get behind this guy and let's get it done. That's what I'm saying is you just got to get it done and work together. you look at the greats over the years, Montana and Rice and all the others. Obviously, in hockey, there's a ton of different collaborations, but it's just 2 players, 3 players, 4 players. They just get together and they just gel, and everyone sort of says, okay, we need to match that intensity. So I think it's an intensity thing. And a lot of it is coaching. We've had a sort of a mini carousel here of coaches, and whether you like Kruger or not, it's finding the guy that that it's really going to manage the room. I like to see what Ralph Kruger does this. Well, it is this year already, which is weird. In the fall, see what he can do and how they start. But I think as far as back to your question. It's a scary thing to think about. I think another year, the Sabres don't make the playoffs, Peter, and they have another year. I think we could be talking about it, right? So we're talking next year at this time. I think that's when it would happen, if it does. I mean, but that would be my thing, and you could understand because, geez Louise, he's already in the league 4 or 5 years. These years go by fast, and they only have so many years to play. And that's the thing. So hopefully that doesn't happen.
All right. Well, I think we've talked a long time and we've burnt everybody's ears off with our great conversation. I do hope for the Sabres, though. They're in the lottery. Anybody can win. Maybe they move up. Either way, hopefully they draft well and get some good young prospect and maybe help them more or less on that defense and booster up that, and again in a year or two, and if they have a big young stud there that can really help Dahlin and the rest of them.
Yeah, my point, I think we have a great defense and certainly we're in good shape for the future. But I think, like I said, Colin Miller coming in was a great pickup. I think if we just had another guy like him that was physical, Bogosian, when he was physical, the team just changed. But then he wanted out, and I don't even think he's with us anymore. But you need a guy like that to come in. We just need to be more physical, and I think you got to be still physical in the NHL to be successful. And I think if someone is more physical, doing it the right way, others will follow. And I just don't think there's a huge level of physical play. Scrappy, yes. I think that will help, especially in our own arena. I've seen too many games where the lack of the physical play, finishing your checks has led to goals, and it just goes on from there. So, I know there's new rules and everything in the NHL, and you can't do the grabbing and this and that, but you can still hit, you can still finish your checks, and you can still make a difference that way. And that slows your opponents down. And if you keep doing that period after period, it opens up some room. So that's my 2 cents on the Sabres.
Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully they can turn around and maybe get to the playoffs next season. Tom, thank you for coming on the podcast. I hope the Sabres start playing better next season, as well as I hope you're feeling better and your health is much better. Thank you for coming on, and it was great catching up with you.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, this is fantastic. Definitely would like to be on again.
That was a great chat I had with Tom a few days ago. It was a real eye-opener to hear what he went through with COVID-19. I'm really thankful he's much better now. And that's it for this episode of Jablam Sports Hockey. Go to jablamsports.com, JABLAM sports.com to see all our podcasts, even game notes for every episode. You'll get info and links to things we mentioned on the show. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify, or wherever you find podcasts. And also click on the 3 dots in your podcasting app and share this episode with 3 friends of yours. You can find me on Twitter at Russian98, RUSSIAN 98, or the entire team at Jablam Sports. And if you have any questions or comments on the show, please tweet us. Also, if you like wrestling, go check out our new wrestling podcast, Pro Wrestling Explode, presented by Jablam Sports here, where Joey Pepperoni and I get to talking about AEW and WWE. We recap and analyze recent matches, storylines, and pay-per-views, and also what's in wrestling news. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to be doing shout-outs at the end of every episode if I can, and for today, I'm going to give a shout-out to my pal, Joey. He's been my backbone, my compadre, and my IT guy, all in one. I really miss our adventures, and I hope we can hang out when some of this returns to somewhat normal, and we can go to some amazing sports and city trips. That's it. To everyone out there, I'm giving you a virtual hug.